Learn to build your identity, stop copying other identities. I've got a newsletter that's gonna help you guys do that. If you're tired of looking at little habits, looking at tricks, trying multiple different courses, and you want sort of a roadmap that's gonna help you actually become the sort of person you can admire and feel good in yourself, because at the end of the day, what's the point in doing something if it doesn't feel right to you? And if you're ready for that sort of transformation, I've left a link in the bio. It's called The Next Chapter. Join me. I'll be telling you about my journey and also helping you with your journey, and let's grow together. Thanks guys, like, comment, share and subscribe. Charisma is the ability to be yourself unapologetically without even ever asking for permission from anybody else. Now, me growing up, I went to pretty much an all-white primary school. So this is like preschool for those of you in America. Between the ages of 4 to about 11 or 12, the predominant ethnicity within my school was white. And I was, in fact, when I first joined the school, I think I was the only black kid within my class. I stood out, and not being able to speak English, coming fresh from Africa at 3 years old, didn't really help me either. But throughout my school experience, I remember in primary school, when I first went in, I was so shy because I always felt like I was different to everybody else. You could feel the tension even then as a little kid. It didn't need someone to point it out to me that I was maybe a different ethnicity to everyone, but you could feel it from the stares, the looks you were getting, the different backgrounds that you were from, the way that your hair was different, all of these little contributing factors. I could tell that I was different. So therefore, I didn't really feel like I was part of the tribe, and humans were typically tribal. So if we feel like we don't fit in the tribe, we typically feel isolated, and this creates anxiety within us. This is something that's biological. During about my second or third year within that school, I remember I went from not being the only black person in the kid to another black kid joining. And this kid didn't join like me. He didn't come into the school being in his shell. He didn't come in trying to pretend he's someone he's not. He just came in unapologetic, loud, big Man United fan. And within a week or two, he was like the most popular kid within the entire year at the time. Even kids who were older than us knew about him. He was also really athletic. He was pretty good at football. I don't even know if he's gone pro, but he was very good when we were younger. And this was sort of my first glimpse into how when you come into a place and you assume that nobody likes you, you're naturally going to isolate yourself. But if you walk into a social environment and you just assume that people are going to like you and you begin to speak to people, a lot of the times people are so stuck in their head, they admire you for having the confidence to go speak to them. Even if it actually took courage in the initial stage and it wasn't naturally confidence, the fact that you were able to do that means that they naturally admire you for it. Growing up into my teenage years, the environment that I was in completely changed. So my first year into high school or secondary school, as we call it in the UK, that was an all-boys school. So my primary school was mixed, but then year 7 was all-boys school. And you know, year 7s, you're the new kids on the block, testosterone running, you've got different kids from different schools, different personalities, rough backgrounds, good backgrounds. You all sort of powered up in one particular school. And this is the first time when all that natural ability to go inside and be shy was confronted physically for the first time. I remember I was in a line with a bunch of kids, and one particular kid pushed me. And then I pushed him back because I thought maybe he's playing with me, but obviously the minute I pushed him back, he took that as a green light to start swinging. He started swinging at me, boom, 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 boom. He actually ended up fracturing my nose. This was when I was about 12 years old. And I went home that day and they said to myself, do I want to report it? And obviously even then I knew that, as a guy, if you lose a fight, the last thing you want to do is go around telling tales and snitching and anything like that. Even back then, somehow we were clued up enough to know that this would have even worse consequences. It's better to just hold that firm and maybe come back for another fight another day. When I went home and my mum heard about this situation, because I didn't grow up with my father, I grew up with my mum. So my mother played both the mother and father role within the household. My mum told me, if anyone ever puts their hands on you, you hit them back. It doesn't matter if you get knocked out, you keep fighting until they know not to mess with you again. So when I went back into school the next day, he actually had a bit of respect for me because I didn't snitch on him. He found out that I didn't say anything. And I was sort of, though the other kids were looking at me like, oh, that's the kid that got punched up. And I hated the feeling that it gave me because it took me back to that feeling when I first went in my primary school and I felt isolated. So what ended up happening eventually is we were playing a game of football and there was this other tall kid, much taller than me. And he must have tackled me and I hit the floor and everyone sort of looked shocked, you know, like, and they paused. And I took that as a moment where I'm either going to look like I just got tackled and it was embarrassing or I was going to do something about it. So this kid wasn't challenging me to a fight, but I stood up and I just started swinging for him. Didn't know what I was doing, where I was hitting, but I was just kept hitting him. And he was a nice kid, so really he was trying to fight back a little bit, but obviously you could tell the way he's fighting, he isn't actually trying to hurt me, whilst me, I'm just going all in for it. And by the end of it, he wasn't really hurt because like I said, this guy was twice my size. But in my school, that was like a David and Goliath situation where everybody saw me, the size of me and the size of him, and he wasn't fighting back. And they thought, wow, this kid just challenged this big guy. Who is he? And I remember in school, especially in an all-boys school, when you're the young guy who basically challenges the giant in your year, and you essentially challenge him to a fight, everyone knows about it. Everyone starts talking about you. I remember for the next week, I was like the most popular kid in the entire school. Everyone from 12 to 16 knew about me because, like I said, this was like some David and Goliath. And eventually that sort of built my charisma back up and eventually, you know, I started going about my life. Now, after the all-boys school, I moved to another school then. The next school was more mixed. Now, both my schools prior to this school that I'm going to talk about were predominantly white. It was mainly white people. I lived in an area in the UK where it's mainly white kids, but not like the posh white kids, the hood white kids, you know, the type that probably could chill with the black guys. When I moved into the next school, this is the first time that I was in a school with people the same color as me, and not even that, they were also like a similar background, similar personalities. They were louder than me because they grew up pretty much all around each other. So they didn't have that thing that I had where whenever I went into a new school, I had to learn what's the best way to adapt into my environment. They naturally were themselves, they were confident, they were already friends with most of the people because those guys went to the same preschool and high school together. So, and I was just coming from a totally different area, sounded different. But I learned from my last two experiences that even if you're shy, you just find somebody who isn't shy, and if you hang around them long enough, you're gonna eventually, you know, also become a confident kid. And in this next school, what ended up happening is I did exactly that. I pretty much picked the kid who was the most out there, courageous, charisma, and he liked me because I was different. This school worked a little bit different. See, when you're the new kid, everybody wants to get to know you. Everybody wants to be your friend because nobody's seen you before. This is like, you're the popular kid for like the first week until they eventually see your personality and see where you fit within that school hierarchy, right? School's kind of like a meritocracy. Like the kids who are really confident, they're at the top. They're the ones who get the girls, everything like that, and you go down depending on your personality. So eventually within this school, I started to actually find myself a little bit more because one, I was around people who were like me, so I no longer had to look over my shoulder and think, you know, am I fitting in? I was no longer in my head. I started to actually build a personality of my own, the things that I like to talk about, the things that I like laughing about. I no longer would hide them. I would essentially let them out with my friends because my friends embraced that. They wanted to know what was my sort of sense of humor, what was I like. And this was the beginning of me actually learning to be charismatic authentically. See, when you're using somebody else's personality, the relatability and the people liking you, they don't actually like you, they like the mask that you're putting on. And whenever that mask comes down, you always feel insecure because you're like always thinking to yourself, maybe these guys aren't really my friends for me, they're my friends because of who I am, pretending to be. These experiences that I went through, I went through them in an early stage of my life. This was during school days. But as I've sort of started to grow up, what I've realized is that you can apply the lessons that I learned when I was younger in all walks of life. Because one thing I've learned to understand is that the way in which we interact as humans doesn't really change too differently from the playground to the office. It's still the same sort of dynamics. It's still the same sort of natural social hierarchies taking place. The people with the most charisma who go for what they want get the promotions at work just the same way they climb to the top of the popularity ladder in school. Charisma isn't necessarily a one-shoe-fits-all. Something else I learned when I was in that school is that each school I went to, there wasn't one sort of personality that sort of got on with everyone. It wasn't the kid that acted like the tough guy that was the most popular. Sometimes it would be the kid that just tells the most jokes. Sometimes it would be the kid that flirts with the most girls. Sometimes it would be the kid that is really, really artistic, nuanced and weird. He'd be popular. And throughout the course of my school days, one thing I noticed in common that they had is they weren't afraid to be themselves. They used authenticity as a strategy rather than fakeness as a strategy. A lot of people use fakeness, inauthenticity as a strategy. And the problem with that, like I said, is you're building your foundation on a rocky ground. Once that ground begins to collapse and everyone sees who you truly are, they're usually not only shocked by what they see, but they're also offended that you actually tried to befriend them with such a fake persona. I've seen this happen many times. Charisma outperforms everything, but charisma truly is when you find your identity and you begin to embrace who you truly are. As you guys move forward, I want you to understand that you've got a lot of quirks and a lot of special things about you guys, your background that make you unique. And rather than you hiding these thinking that you're gonna stand out, what you need to do is you need to learn to embrace them. Because once you truly embrace them, yes, not everybody's gonna like your personality, but you're always gonna find the people that really resonate with your message, your voice, your story, and your background. Same way that I told you about my school background, going to many different schools, I found now later in life, I've got friends who grew up in one neighborhood and they see the way that I can interact with different types of people. And they actually ask me about that. How did I learn that? Are you just, and they see as I'm just a naturally social person. But really, it was almost like a traumatic experience in my childhood because I was exposed to so many different people and I was constantly putting on a different mask that eventually as I got older, what I realized is I don't need to do that. If I just be myself naturally around every single type of person, they begin to choose whether they get on with me or they don't. And as you begin to do that more and you get more comfortable with yourself and you feel better about yourself, naturally, even the people that dislike you become envious because you're one of the only people who's truly grounded in their own confidence, their own personality. I talk a lot about habits. I talk a lot about things you can actually change, like the way you speak, the way you talk. A lot of self-improvement content that I see focuses on the habits, the tricks, the things that you need to do in order to get results. And I get it because we all seem to think that there's a one-shoe-fits-all sort of solution. If I eat this particular diet, I'm gonna look like this. If I lift this kind of weights, I'm gonna look like this. If I dress like this, I'm gonna get these results. These people are gonna like me. If I talk like this, then these people are also gonna respect me because I've seen this done by this person. And if it works with this person, it must work with me. But like I said, this is a bad foundation to ever build a personality on. And what you need to realize is that true change and true transformation doesn't come from a few habits and tricks. It comes from actually becoming the sort of person that you admire. And the sort of person you admire is only true to you. What are the things you like? Believe it or not, the things that make you different are the things that you should embrace even more, because a lot of the times people are curious about other people's backgrounds. They're used to the normal narrative, the guy who dresses a certain way, who does this. When you come in different, with a different personality, a different set of views, it brings people in. I want you to think of some of your favorite public figures. Who are the celebrities that you follow? Who are the politicians you might look up to? Who are the musicians you listen to? There's all sorts of quirky things about them that makes you attracted to them. Maybe it's a certain attitude they have, a certain way they dress, a certain style of music or fashion or clothing or look that they have that really resonates with you. And you'll notice that none of these people look like the people that you see walking up the street every single day. And that's because these guys have learned to embrace their true identity. See, what I think money does when you truly get money is it makes you reveal who you truly wanted to be. If you're naturally a greedy person, that identity is going to show when the money comes out. If you're a giving person, the money's going to show that. If you've always wanted to dye your hair green in multiple colors like some of these rappers, it's not these rappers switch up. I think what happens is they were always a bit crazy and loony and looking to do those sort of things. And literally once they had the money, they didn't have to comply to a boss. They don't have to go to work. They were able to truly be who they are. And because they're so unapologetically themselves, they naturally attract an audience.